and also have my own NFT project. So I teach a lot about this framework at places like Stanford University, Yale, Oxford, Google, Tesla IDEO, BCG, a lot of places. Our design work from the Octalis group has actually empowered over 1 billion users. Actually, we calculated that mid last year. So we're probably nearing the 2nd billion user experiences. I was also head of creative labs and head of digital commerce for HTC. So really defining and pioneering the future of VR, AR, and metaverse stuff. On the blockchain Web3 front, I was the chief experience officer for Decentral and working alongside the co-founder of Ethereum, Anthony Iorio. Most people know Vitalik as the co-founder, and Anthony used to be Vitalik's boss until Vitalik wrote the white paper, and Anthony's like, wow, this is so amazing that we should stop everything and do this thing called Ethereum. And they both brought in 2 co-founders. So in total, there's 6 co-founders of Ethereum. I work with one, Anthony. The Octalis group also worked with another one, Mihai, on a different project. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of work in the blockchain space. And finally, I was rated a #1 gamification guru out of the top 100 gamification gurus for 3 out of 4 years. Later, I became a judge. So that kind of disqualified me to become a guru, interestingly. So, you know, helped lots of companies, wrote a book. And yeah, so when it comes down to metaverse, right, we're going to talk about the relevance of gamification in the metaverse. So if you ask different companies and different people what is the metaverse, they'll give you a lot of different answers. So, and it really depends on what company they're in. So if you're a VR company, you might say like, oh, the metaverse is a VR environment we can go in and you explore and do all these things, right? So that's like Ready Player One, Meta says that, HTC also says a big part of that. But if you were a 3D gaming company that doesn't have a VR component, such as Fortnite or whatnot, you would say, oh, the metaverse is a 3D environment where you can explore, but it doesn't have to be VR, you know, it's just as long as it's 3D. And there's this concept of persistence, it's always there, it's open, then that's a metaverse. And if you're a Web3 company, you might say the metaverse is this concept of interoperability and persistent ownership of different inventory, different items. And and in the Chinese saying, there's this concept called the blind people filling out an elephant. So if you're blind, you don't know what an elephant's like, and you try to fill it out. Like you might, if you touch the trunk, you say, oh, the elephant's like a snake. If you touch the belly, it's like, oh, the elephant's like a wall. If you touch the legs, oh, the elephant's like a pillar. And so it's like, but it's all of it combined, right? And that's the metaverse. When I was in HTC, we were exploring something called the Viverse, which is something similar. And there's a variety of things pieced together, NFT, avatar governance, all of those things. But I kind of put together a little organization, how these things kind of come to the metaverse. The metaverse, you know, when it comes to the immersive experience, right? That's the experience part, and that's the VR AR. So virtual reality, augmented reality, you have a constant avatar that technically you can travel through different worlds. There's the idea of permanence. The world doesn't shut down when you turn off your computer, right? It's always there, and it's a social space. Then we have blockchain technology, and blockchain technology is more about how the value flows. So again, AR, VR is a bit more on the experience, and the blockchain is a bit more on value and ownership. So that's when we have Web3 decentralizations, not run a central computer. Obviously, Meta wants to make it a little more centralized. There's crypto certain NFTs and this concept of interoperability, which means stuff you own here can go like an item you get in a game, you could take that item to another game and then to the metaverse and all that stuff. Now, why is gamification relevant? It's because you have the experience, right? You have the immersive environment, and you also have the ownership and value infrastructure. But what needs to be there is engagement. People need to actually be engaged with the experience and with the content and care about things, because I'm sure you've seen games that are amazing technology. There's a lot of 3D graphics, but it just doesn't engage you and people leave. And this is especially true in the early days of VR. You might walk to a conference at a booth and you put on a VR headset and like, oh, this is so cool. Yeah. Because there's this intrigue, right? There's this novelty. But after probably 2 or 3 minutes, you're like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm good here. Thanks a lot. Because there isn't engagement in it. Once the novelty wears off, it's gone. So we want to think about, okay, are there things that bring out our creativity and make us feel appreciated and have social influences and make us feel like we're growing, leveling up, improving. So gamification is really the engagement piece that makes these things success. I'm sure you see also blockchain project, Web3 projects that that seem cool. They have that scarcity there, but there isn't that engagement, and those don't become very successful too.
So you guys on actually, if you can go back, just so part of this, right? Like we're kind of nice that we're breaking it down for people almost kind of in terms of, you know, what falls under blockchain, how does the engagement and the gamification fit, and then almost kind of, you know, what does this front end kind of look like? So it almost looks like kind of, you know, back end engagement, front end. And somebody asked a great question. Gene Creech did that, you know, what's an example of a Web3 company? I think that it'd be good to solidify that since you kind of have a nice graph right here showing us or kind of a slide here. Like, well, what's an example of a Web3 company? What kind of differentiates them from a Web2 company?
So Web3 company is a company that provides most of its offerings through a decentralized blockchain. So what does that mean? So most things, especially, you know, in the software world, it's on a central server. It's sitting on, you know, a lot of AWS, Amazon servers, Google servers, and or, you know, private servers, and it's centralized, so the company can shut it down whenever they want. They can kick people out, invite people, and they can delete your files. They can also restore your files, which is very important. And so that's in a centralized way. Now, a decentralized way on the blockchain means that it's not on a single company. It's on a network of computers and potential miners that that's sort of there. So it's very much of a P2P concept where there's no central company or bank or government that processes, let's say, payments or maintains that your NFT or your digital goods, let's say, your digital goods has persistence. So now with the Web3, it's on the blockchain. So the network computers verify that your digital ownership is validated. So, and because it's a whole network of computers, no entity can just say, hey, I'm going to shut it down. I'm just going to forget about it, or I lose my server broke, so it doesn't exist anymore. So of course there's pros and cons. The pro is, it doesn't matter if a company dies or not, the company that hosts the service, your ownership is still your ownership. It's still on the blockchain. Now so you feel true ownership. It's not just a custodial, like your stuff is kind of where they're at. Sometimes you'll see like you can buy gold and keep the gold yourself, or you can buy gold kind of shares where they tell you, hey, you now have this much gold that's with us, and you can buy and sell that gold, but the gold's ultimately with us. So if we're in war or whatever, we might just take it away. So that's a big difference. Now, the advantage of having centralized is that, let's say you misplace your password, right? Or you get hacked, and you know, someone takes over your password and sends your money elsewhere. You can go to the centralized source and say, hey, you know, that was a mistake. Please help me restore my account. And they can do it. Decentralized, you know, you're responsible. You are the bank in a sense. And if you mishandle things, then it's gone. So that's why a lot of people like to scam people with their crypto, because once it's out, it can't come back. So when you look at these companies, there's a variety of Web3 companies. Some just hold NFTs. So they just create digital goods that can be obtained, that can be held there. Some are just cryptocurrency companies. So, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and they're not necessarily companies, but some companies just push out these cryptocurrencies. Some of them run a game like Axie Infinity, which is a game based on NFTs, and then can, because of the tokenomics and all this, we'll go into some of this later, that people can make money. Nowadays, the hot thing is STEPN, move to earn. It's a exercise tracker, but as you're exercising, it generates tokens that you can sell for real money. So it's like, and a lot of people say they're making, you know, a few $1,000s every month just by exercising for an hour or two every day. So it's, you know, pretty compelling. So there's a variety of companies that are based on the Web3. And I think it's going to be more and more. The reason why we're here, right, where we're looking at all this metaverse, Web3, all that stuff, is imagine you're in, you know, 1997, and you're looking at what the internet is, right? And in hindsight, we know that in the not so distant future, all businesses will be on the internet, right? Every single business will have a website, will have social media presence. Every consumer is going to be on the internet. So what can you do in 1997 to learn as much as you can to position yourself responsibly? Because as we know, there's also the 2001 bubble burst, right? What can you do to responsibly position yourself so that as in the next 10 years, you become dominant and you figure things out, you're ahead of the curve and you're relevant, you're important in that future world. So this is what we're learning right now. There's obviously a lot of things that are overhyped. There's bubbles, there's exuberance in valuations, but at least, we, alongside a lot of other companies and Mark Zuckerberg, right, changed the entire name of the company to this. We believe that is where humanity's going towards, where the world of business and commerce and entertainment's going. So I think it's very important to at least understand it and then decide how you're going to position yourself in that.
Awesome. I think that really clarifies. And if anybody else has any questions in the chat, obviously I'll keep running with those. But yeah, I think a couple points that you touched on is that I think is very interesting is not only just kind of this decentralized manner of how these things are, but a little bit more about, how communities are actually kind of evolving. In the Web 2 space, where we're very used to this kind of, oh, this is somebody that we're interested in and we're going to follow them. And then they kind of are at this, top of the hierarchy, and the hierarchy continues to get almost larger. And then they're this one piece. And one of the things that I always say is, the Web 2 space versus Web 3 is that the Web 2 space feels kind of lonely. It feels like it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of this community or come together. And one of the things that I really love about the Web 3 space is that it seems as though everybody is kind of here and has some underlining either matching values or reasons as to why they are here. And when we look at that, I think the community side of it is where you actually have a lot of opportunity to give to the community. You can get a lot of intrinsic value from that. There's the extrinsic value, like you just mentioned, in terms of doing something that you already like, and you're going to get some sort of rewards, through tokens. So I think, the community aspect is pretty interesting. What have you seen kind of very different, you guys, that you've been around, obviously, a decade, just through Octalysis, but even longer in that, that community building kind of side that you see very different in terms of the culture of Web3?
I think obviously Web 2 also has social, right? And that's Core Drive 5, social influence relatedness in the Octalysis framework. It has a lot of social, and through social, I think there is some type of community. I think the unique thing about Web 3 is that there is a community based on joint ownership. So so everyone has a stake in that project. Before it's like, hey, pleasantry, hi, how are you doing? Good. And it's like, hey, look at my photo. Oh, like, I feel popular, right? And it's just, for a lot of people, they feel like it's a little more superficial. But with Web3 world, and it's also because every project has its own kind of NFT or cryptocurrency or token, whatnot, and so you get to choose which community you want to be in, and then that people there, at least the serious people, they have a stake in it, so they're there to say, hey, I own part of these tokens that might not be worth anything unless enough people care about this together. So they're also incentivized to go around and teach people how to use it and be friendly. A lot of technology like Discord helps with that a lot. So I think there's that big trend there, and we know from the Octalysis room. So I'm gonna skip through a lot of things because we're definitely making it a quite conversational. But this is Octalysis framework. We're most known for this. It's pretty well known in a lot of places. But it breaks down all human motivation 8 core drives. Everything we do in the world is based on one or more of these 8 core drives, which means that if there's none of them there, there's zero motivation. No behavior happens. On the top, we have white hat motivation core drives, makes people feel powerful, in control, they feel good, but no sense of urgency, so they procrastinate. Bottom, we have black hat motivation core drives, makes you feel urgent, obsessed, even addicted, but in the long run leaves a bad taste in their mouths because they feel like they're not in control of their own behavior. I'm going through this very fast because I've got a lot of other content, a whole 500-page book about this, but I'm gonna move on to more of the Web3 metaverse stuff. The left side, left brain core drives deal with extrinsic motivation, things you do for a reward, purpose, or a goal. but you don't necessarily enjoy the activity itself. So once you obtain the reward, you hit your goals, you get used to the reward, you stop doing it. So it's like, hey, you're doing something because they'll give you cryptocurrency or they'll give you some NFT drop. You're doing it for the reward, right? So you're not doing it because you enjoy it. So once you get the reward, or you feel like, hey, this thing is not worth as much as I think it's worth, you drop out. The right brain core drive deal with intrinsic motivation, things that you just enjoy doing, to the point that you're willing to experience, to pay money just to experience it. And if you lost all your progress to tomorrow, you lost your NFT, you lost your progress, you would still want to do this activity today, because that's how we measure quality of lives. How much time we spend on things we just enjoy doing. So that community aspect is on the right side. It's intrinsic, it makes us feel happy. Now, social influence is in the middle. It could be white hat, which is about collaboration, social appreciation, teamwork, but it could also be on the bottom side with black hat, which is about competition, peer pressure, and social shunning. So I think when we look at this community, and you look at a lot of these NFTs, I did a big analysis on, what makes an NFT valuable. And this goes not just to NFT, but a lot of blockchain projects. Number one, scarcity. So it's about the digital goods that's scarce. And then that analogy I use for a lot of people who are not deep in the Web3 space is that say, hey, look, I wrote a book and I sold about 100,000 copies of this book, right? Actionable gamification. And that book is what we call fungible. It's people just want the knowledge, but each book is the same if they trade with each other. The ebook is just as good. The audiobook is good. It's just the word, the text that matters. But in my life, I think I've signed maybe 200 or 300 books, and those are non-fungible. They're all unique and different. If people trade them, they're not the same. And so it creates a first of all, scarcity, but also a deeper, meaningful relationship with the author, with the brand, with the vision, with a passion. And so that scarcity is there. And for those who are not familiar, basically an NFT is like putting a serial number on an internet digital good, because and it allows you to have true ownership, because some things is just like if you buy something from a game, right? Buy a digital hat. It's on the game's even though you bought it, you don't own it. It sits in the game servers, and they can delete it, they can remove it, they can give it to someone else if they really want to. You don't really own it. And it's not scarce, right? They can literally just give 1 million people the same thing, copy paste. But with NFTs, first of all, no one company can control it, so you own it in a decentralized blockchain. But also there's that scarcity. Now the key thing here, though, is that you still have to trust the developers, the company that's issuing this, that they'll uphold the scarcity, because it's also true that the companies issuing NFTs, they can issue more. Right? It's like, oh, those 10,000 were great. Let's do another 50,000. So it's almost like this, the US government just printing out more fiat money, right? So you just have to trust developers to do that. But the second part is very, very important, the meaning and purpose of that NFT. So what does it actually stand? Now there's scarcity, right? It's limited, but if it's limited, useless stuff, it doesn't have any value. And so what is the purpose and meaning behind it? So I have a friend who lives in Denmark, and he has a really rugged, broken couch that he cherishes dearly. And so even though it has no utility and it has no cosmetics, he cherishes a lot because it used to be Winston Churchill's couch. And to him, Winston Churchill is a war hero, right? So the meaning, the memories, what it stands for behind the scenes gives it immense value. But then we add the third part, and that Matt brought up, community. Because if my friend was the only person who cared about Winston Churchill, even though to him that couch is valuable, he can't really sell it out to another person, right? But if there's 1 million people who all believe that Winston Churchill is a war hero, first of all, they love being together, right? They're talking about Winston Churchill and pulling out his photos and all that stuff, his history, and even making fan art. But then he can probably sell this couch to someone else for a higher price, and who can sell it to someone for a higher price. And so I think those are three really unique things in the Web3 world. Now, Matt, since you're jumping around, I'll give you an overview of what I can talk about in Ikigai. I can talk about how MetaBlocks, which is my own project, uses the principles of these three: scarcity, meaning, and social influence. I have a bit of explaining about utilities, and also how to design economies, and also tokenomics. So feel free to guide where we want the conversation to go. Yeah.
Sure. No, I'm kind of, people are asking questions and being really engaging in the chat. So that's really great. One quick question. What's your thought on I just answered one here, but these metaverses, do we think we're gonna be one? Is it gonna be many? Are people gonna fulfill the Ready Player Me vision? Or is that decades away? What's kind of what do you think in terms of how much time are people gonna be spending in these metaverses?
Yeah, so I think what's going to happen is that there's not going to be, and depends on your semantics, right? So I would say there's one metaverse, but in this metaverse, there's some people use different federations, almost like countries, and some are closed federations like Meta, right? And some are more open, decentralized ones. So, and this is the Viverse, so this is their version of it, right? And the unique thing is through blockchain technology, it could be interoperable, which means, again, what you get here can be taken somewhere else. But each federation, I'm just calling it that for now, will have its own rules. It's almost like passports into a country or border control. So Meta might say, hey, stuff from this game cannot come in, stuff from this game can't come in, stuff from here can come in, but you need to pay a fee, right? And the other rules. So the technology will make it possible. Now, we're still very far away from that because if you're on a different chain, it's very hard to bridge that and communicate. But I think some companies are working on projects that bridge the chains. And so if you're on Ethereum and you have something potential in the future, it could possibly go to Solana. And I think from a world standpoint, it makes sense, right? So I think it's going to be everything that's possibly connected through technology, that is connected to technology, and then it's just rules about what is okay, what's not. I'll say that I'm not a big fan of the Ready Player One feature in general, because which is the real world is garbage, and so people spend all their time in a digital virtual world, right? 24/7. This is why I did gamification, not create games. I didn't want to create better fantasy worlds people can escape to. I wanted to make this world more engaging so people don't need to go there. And this is also why I started MetaBlock. So it's kind of a random leading, but we don't have to go deep down. But it's about NFTs powered by real world places and real life memories. So it's about double down the real world and add meaningful memories that happen in the real world. And so, but I think we're probably, depending on what vision you're looking at, we're probably 4 to 7 years out for a lot of the things that people pitch as a vision. So right now, a lot of the stuff is clunky, and the user experience is terrible. The market is fluctuating, very volatile because people are not sure, right? When prices fluctuate a lot, there's a lot of volatility. It means it's not mature, right? Because people are like, hey, let me put a little money there and see what happens. Oh no, something's weird. Let me pull out, right? And so it's volatile, right? So it's like people want to throw money in, but they pull out really quickly because no one knows what it's actually worth. But when it's mature, there's like, oh, it's below this price, so it's underpriced. We'll put money in. Oh, it's over. Let's take some money out, right? And there's that maturity, so it doesn't fluctuate so much. Yeah, so I think we're pretty early, but again, early is the best time to learn and start sowing seeds.
Yeah, and I'll do some clarification too, just for any newbies here, that when we're talking about different chains, think of a different chain as like a different operating system. So think of like how your Apple, your Windows, and your Google, don't share a lot of the same things, right? The file types, conversions, and then people have built these tools to be able to allow those two different systems to operate together. So when we talk about different blockchains, think of it that way from a visual, that blockchains are being built with different standards. And then, as you guys said, there's a lot of people and companies that are focused on trying to bridge these standards and create, organizations and foundations that say, hey, we should all be agreeing on certain standards, whether it's from, design, whether it's from development, so that we can really get to that interoperability, which basically means, like he said before, if I buy something on this chain, if it's whether it's an NFT, an avatar, a membership, a pass, access, I should be able to transfer that to this other system and still get the benefits that I've received in this other one. So that's definitely part of it. Now, a couple of things here. We're looking at this economy design before we jump into, because I think people are really going to like that. One of the things I was going to just touch on when we talk about engagement in the metaverse, and something that, being very heavy into it myself, we really look at how the user experience really just isn't there. So two sides to this kind of question is, why is there not a focus on the user experience when we see like new technologies kind of come out? And then, yeah, what do we kind of, as people in the audience here, again, who want to reach out, who are saying, we'd like to understand how this works from a, like I said, a community. How do we build a community with it? How do we already have clients? How do we engage them, in this side of things? So kind of that engagement question. Why is the UX so bad right now? And then for the people in the audience, how could they look at starting to leverage some of these engagements and technologies?
All right, so that goes back to some fundamental slides in our work, which is the idea of human-focused design as opposed to function-focused design. And we believe gamification embodies human-focused design. So most systems are function-focused. They assume people already have motivation, and they optimize for efficiency or for the technology. And so they build a lot of features. And when it comes to gaming, it's totally different, because for games, it's not about functions and technology, right? It's just purely exists to engage people. So, and there's no purpose to playing a game, right? You never have to play a game. You have to use your banking software. You have to pay your taxes. You have to, take your medicine. Even if you don't like it, you kind of just suck it up and do it. So that's why you see, like, for instance, banking apps, they could be really terrible from an engagement standpoint. You could be agony in every single step, and people will just still use it because they need to manage the money, right? So the banking world, they can survive with quite poor user experience design. And then Revolut comes in and say, hey, look, we have actually, it's not amazing, but it's like, hey, it's actually a pleasantly delightful experience. And then suddenly they're valued at billions, tens of billions of dollars, and eating the bank's lunch. So here, if you go back to the game, you never have to play a game. Like the moment a game is no longer fun, you leave the game, right? You play another game, you check your email, you go to YouTube. And so because game has spent decades or even centuries, depending on how you qualify a game, figuring out how to get people to come back every, sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, doing oftentimes repetitive action, like throwing out a bird, throwing out a bird, throwing out a bird, or matching 3 gems, matching 3 gems, matching 3 gems. We're learning from that discipline, which is why we talk about gamification and engagement science. And so if you look at something like Google Plus, if you remember back in the day, Google pushed Google Plus out as the most important part. They said this one product, Google Plus, is supposed to connect all Google products in the world, right? So supposedly Google Plus is the best technology Google could offer, which arguably means one of the best technologies in the world. But most people who are there felt like, oh, I don't get it. There's no engagement, and they're gone. So I think a lot of companies, when they're building projects, they're still thinking about technology, they're still thinking about functionality as opposed to user experience, how to make them delighted. Instead of maximizing functionality, you should maximize on delightfulness, right? And this is why we talk about gamification actually is the glue between the left and right, which are actually more technology. Gamification is not technology. It's a design discipline about creating delightful experiences. And the other are technology. It makes things possible. It's the environments, the infrastructure, but gamification is what engages people.
Awesome. Great question. Quick couple from the group here. We're getting a lot of awesome questions. So a little bit of what's the difference of an NFT from a collectible on an antique roadshow, right? Something is only valuable if other people want it, just like Churchill's possessions. So, who really cares? How is an NFT any different? And what makes NFTs today unique?
I think that's the interesting part, right? It can replicate what's interesting about physical collectibles, because before on the internet, it's not possible. Like if you have the Mona Lisa, right? You take a picture of Mona Lisa, you can replicate that digitally 1 billion times, and none of that, everyone looks at it like, hey, that's cool, that's the Mona Lisa. It actually does marketing and increase the value for the real deal, right? Interestingly, but generally owning one of those JPEGs doesn't do anything. So it actually allows you to take the value of those roadshows of physical collectibles and bring the internet. Now you have all the advantage of the internet that's powering it. So most people walk the other way. It's like, oh, internet is abundant, so let's add some scarcity and meaning to these projects. But if you're talking about, okay, physically, how is it different? Then it's the power of the internet, which is now people can transact online very easily. You know, you go to OpenSea, you go to different platforms and say, hey, here's the thing I want to acquire it, and then you connect your wallet, boom, and then you own it in, you know, within 10, you know, depending on what it is, right, 10 seconds to 5 minutes, and you don't need an intermediary, you know, auction house potentially or whatnot. So that itself is interesting. You can create online communities. Like most people on our Discord communities we've never met. All right. And so, you know, when we did MetaBlocks, I was doing a speech in the Miami NFT conference. Some of our Discord members, one person flew from the UK to Miami just to meet us and to support the team. So, and Matt, you were there too, right? So where did you travel from again?
I'm in Windsor, Ontario, right across from Detroit.
Yeah. So people showed up, but and a lot of them, we only met them 1 or 2 months prior. And so you're applying the power of the internet in general into this value economy that wasn't possible.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, that's great. Okay, we have a really big one here from Max. And this might lead into our economy design, but tokenomics. How do we keep people from dumping their in metaverse tokens and cashing out? I understand having a functional economy and a cause for keeping tokens flowing into the ecosystem. I just fear that the market is too immature not to see the metaverse tokens as free money or Web3 stimulus checks. I feel as if the play to earn model is deeply flawed. We see what happened with the milk token, Cool Pets. You know, do you foresee a solid way to keep tokens within an ecosystem circulating and the value of a token stable? Or do you think it's just what we're going to be dealing with in the near future until metaverses are more widely adopted? Yeah, like speaking even to a couple of those, those specific ones, you know, I know there's some examples that we've even talked about, you guys, right, with some of the GameFi, in terms of having this kind of closed economy where the value is, you know, there's not really a lot of value being derived or being transferred to other parties. And largely in part, the value of these tokens are based on demand. And then that's what we've seen is that when demand shores up, basically the token values kind of crash. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's important for every project to have that meaning and purpose, like why this project, why humanity is better because of this project 10 years down the road. Because if you don't have that, then most people are there because they feel like they can get rich in 4 months, and that's not sustainable, right? And then when they realize, oh, I'm not getting rich, then everyone leaves. And so it's often good to tie your project. Hopefully it's in your DNA, but even if it's not completely, it's good to have good narrative and storytelling about tying it to some high level themes like honor, saving the world, uniqueness, faith, whatnot. And so if people believe this token, this cryptocurrency represents these themes, as long as those themes still hold true, as long as they're so passionate about that theme, they still want that token. And they are incentivized to go around and tell people how that theme is very, very important. And so this is why we, for MetaBlocks, we actually went with 2 things, you know. So we turned real world locations into NFTs. So the San Francisco. And so we turn all these blocks into NFTs. And then we, to level up those NFTs, make them more valuable, people upload memories related to it. So but the key thing, our thinking behind that is, okay, what is actually timeless in the real world? 1 is real estate, and 2 is memories, right? Steve Jobs meeting Steve Wozniak. Oh, you married, you did your proposal here, you had your first child here. And so we believe that 10, 20 years later, people are probably not playing the same NFT games as today. They might not be caring about the same NFT monkeys or lions, but it's hard to imagine that they don't care about, you know, locations in the real world that are landmarks, that are the place they live, the place they go to school. And also it's hard to imagine they don't care about memories. And in fact, that's landmarks, right? Landmarks and museums, historical sites in the real world, the longer time goes by, the more valuable it becomes. So that's just the epic meaning and culling theme. And so then we go into the idea of NFT utility. So I divide utility into 3 types. So the first type of utility is helping its own ecosystem. So it's like, hey, you know, we our NFTs now, it could be animated now, or can you jump around in this game world, or you can spend our tokens and get angel wings for our own avatars. So in a sense, like it only is valuable to its own ecosystem. If the ecosystem isn't there, it's kind of pointless. To some extent, staking is the same thing. So staking is basically you kind of like, it's like a savings account. You deposit a certain amount of, it's like more like a CD, I guess. You deposit a certain amount of cryptocurrency or tokens to your depository, the repository in the blockchain, and then you get a percentage return, right? And it adds stability to the blockchain. People can't just withdraw it and run it very easily. They need some time to unstake it. But the interesting thing about staking is that, oh, well, there's a token here and maybe it's not valuable at all, it has zero value. Oh, but wait, if I store it somewhere, it will start generating itself. So suddenly it's super valuable, right? And it's kind of a circular logic. It's not valuable, but it generates itself, so it's valuable. But a lot of people do buy into that, and most tokens end up having more than $0 value. So it is doing something. But the second type of utility is helping other blockchain ecosystems. So if you have something like Ethereum, where you power a smart contract, and so other companies can use smart contract to do a lot of other things on their blockchains, then it's very powerful. If Ethereum suddenly disappears, a lot of these companies and blockchains and all the projects will have a lot of problems because they can't take advantage of the utility anymore. You also have Arweave storing things onto the blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third one, which is really helping real life activities, things that we already do in the real world, regardless if there's a blockchain or not. And so things like we already want to send money to people. So if there's a technology that allows you to send money faster, cheaper, maybe more secure, decentralized, then suddenly that's a ton of value, right? And there's a lot of people fighting for that role, but that's basically Bitcoin and a lot of contenders. But that utility, if it's the real deal, it's not going to go away. It's very valuable. Or to a different extent, people already like to go to exclusive gatherings and events to network and build bonds and help each other and feel special in a way. So if you have an NFT that is like it's like access pass to certain exclusive events, to meet, this billionaire who only issued 100 of these, right? So suddenly that's valuable in the real world, which means it has a type of utility. So in comes the economy design framework. So we've been designing economies for over a decade, and a lot of it before was just in game, and then in the past 3-4 years more like tokenomics, whatnot. So if you look here, there's what we call sources and sinks. So sources are how value is added into the economy, and sinks are basically how it's drained from the economy. So sources, the basic foundation of value in a economy is the labor people put in. And so let's say you're playing a game and you play the game for 1,000 hours and you get a powerful sword. Now this sword is worth 1,000 hours worth of labor. And so if another person who's playing the game wants that sword, but they don't want to, play the game and grind for 1,000 hours, they give you 1,000 hours of labor, of dollars worth of labor, money, to get the sword, right? So that's the basic foundation. You put time into the system, and then that labor is worth money. Now, some play to earn countries make a lot of money, like people in the Philippines, whatnot, is because of the exchange rate. Sometimes someone else has to spend 1,000 hours, but their 1,000 hours is the same value as another country's 10 hours worth of labor. So suddenly that trading becomes a win-win on both sides. But that's still still calculated in labor. And then the skill leverage, might not go through everything in detail, but it's basically, some people get more value per hour. It's just like a doctor's hour is worth more than a janitor's hour. But most of the time people have to spend labor to acquire that skill leverage. Sometimes they're innately more talented, but usually have to secure that, or you have a booster, you have better gear, whatnot. Then there's the luck factor. The luck factor is basically like you play this game and you're really lucky, right? You play the game for an hour and you get a sword that's worth 1,000 hours of labor on average. So even though you only spend an hour, it's still worth 1,000 hours of labor, because someone else who doesn't want to grind for 1,000 hours on average, they still have to pay you 1,000 hours worth of labor for it. So those are the sources. And so these activities generate value into the ecosystem, right? And then there's external, which is purchasability. Like, hey, to get these tokens, I'm not going to do any of these. I'm just going to spend money to buy Ethereum, Bitcoin, or fiat cash. I'm just going to buy it, right? So you get things into the ecosystem. Then there's a tradability, like players trade between each other, and that's like a source and a sink because some people gain and some people lose. Same. But then we have the sinks. What do you spend the token to burn? And so, we talked about the 3 types of utility. People spend the tokens to get type 1 utility or spend tokens type 2, type 3. And as they spend the supply of that token, and here's interesting, it decreases, but if any Web3 project tells you that their token is deflationary and it's the supply gets less and less, that's just BS, okay? They could have deflationary mechanics, which means that there's burns, ways to burn it and throw it away and it's gone, but it will not decrease the overall supply of the ecosystem, because almost in all cases, I'm pretty sure in all cases, the rate that it gains is faster than it burns. Because if it's truly deflationary, then on day 1, it will have the most tokens in the whole ecosystem. And then every day it's going to get less and less and less until it becomes zero, like no more tokens exist, right? And no project exists like it. Even Bitcoin just says we cap it. Bitcoin's like it's still generating more and more and more, but it's getting slower and slower and slower and slower and slower. And when it hits like 21, 22 million Bitcoins, 100 years later, it stops, right? It's not decreasing quantity, it just stops. And so when the value of a token goes up, it's basically saying the demand of the token, the increase of demand of token is faster than the increase in supply of the token. So if you have these burn mechanics, the increase of supply is lower, is not as fast. So if the ecosystem is increasing demand, more people want these utilities, right? And more people care about the meaning, more people want to join in on this, then the value goes up. So at the end, it's liquidity. So, if you can sell your tokens for money, then, it's the opposite purchasability, right? So all this stuff is the actual value of that ecosystem. Then everything is hinged on this thing called confidence speculation, which is people emotionally feel like, hey, this is worth a lot. This is the future. This is amazing. And everyone's going to be hyped about it. Because if you look at this utility, right, it's like, hey, look, our NFTs can jump around in the game now. Sure, that's utility, right? Type 1 utility. And it's worth something, but is it worth $100,000? Probably not, right? Hey, we have this NFT that's Access Pass to meet a successful business person or some exclusive event. Hey, that generously is like $10,000, but it's not $500,000. So why is it so high? It's because there's that speculation. People say, wow, this is the storytelling. Everyone's jumping. It's like, I can sell it to someone who's going to buy it higher. So people buy something at 200K, not because they believe the utility itself is worth 200K. It's because they believe someone else could buy it at 500K afterwards. And then it's just that confidence speculation. So when you're in a bull market, that confidence and speculation is high. So it takes whatever the foundational economy is and it pushes up the price. And when the economy is bad, which is what we're seeing right now, it basically drops down to the actual utility value of the project. And it's not good or bad. It's just breathe in, breathe out for industry. But obviously people who go in when it's high, they will lose money. So it's I keep saying you want to be very sane when you look at how an economy is designed. So with this framework, we know that if we want to keep a token very balanced, you want to maximize type 1, type 2, type 3, especially type 3, because it never goes away, and the other types too. But then you increase the demand for it. Now, because of the speculation thing, I believe you cannot have a tokenomics that's like, first of all, consistently go up, 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 but also it doesn't stay the same place because of the market fluctuating. But it at least will always fall back to what it's actually worth in terms of utility. And sometimes it falls and it dies, right? Everyone sells and there's a like a bank run basically, and it dies. So it goes beyond, it goes way below the actual utility. But if you look at a game like Axie Infinity, the problem is that when you have a token that has like a type 1 utility, I believe it's better that it's a stable coin because it processes important functionalities in the game, right? Let's say you on average need to kill 10 monsters to get a key to open a door, right? So labor to utility conversion. But let's say the token value goes up, and now you have to kill 500 monsters to get a key to open a door, right? It's just not a playable game, and this is what you see. In order to join Axie Infinity, you have to buy the NFTs, and it gets too expensive, but no one can afford to actually jump in and start playing the game. And they have to invent a scholarship model, which is an NFT owner can lease his NFTs to new players. It's like a farm, you're leasing a farm to a farmer, and then they do the grinding work, and then you split some of the profits. But that's not sustainable either. So technically, it's better if a essential action in the game in the ecosystem is a stable coin, but everyone wants the value to go up. They want to make money from it. So therefore, it really doesn't stay that way. The confidence speculation pushes up. So, but if you're really down to earth and you really design, you don't use any hype language like, hey, this is going to go to the moon. I think you could keep it at a stable price. So it's good. It's good economy design, how everything flows and comes together, how all the different types of utility connects, but it's also not, if you want it to be stable, right? Not hyping it up and saying it'll go to the moon, everyone's going to get rich. Everyone just focus on the actual utility. I think that's how you keep it stable. But then, a lot of people don't get rich when it rises. When it falls, no money is being destroyed. It's really, these things are just a vessel. If someone said, oh, this $10 billion worth is lost because of the crash, it just means $10 billion were gained from nowhere earlier, right? Someone made the 10 billion, they put money into this vessel and it went up, and they took money out, and then you put money late and you took money up when it's down. It's basically, it didn't destroy money, it's just, it passed hands. So that's why you see people who are in scams, and they jump into the next one because they're the early people who made money. But yeah, it's important to see it for what it is, and understand that a lot of these are vessels of value, right? People still say store of exchange, a store of value. They're vessels, they don't destroy. Now it's bad when the management team takes away a bunch of that money, right? That's the problem. Those are being scammed. But if the price of the token goes down, it usually just means, someone made a lot of money and someone lost a lot of money.
Right. No, that's a great explanation. One part I was going to add too is that what we're just starting to scratch the surface on as well is more B2B functionality, right? So I know that you were talking about games and keeping that engagement. And then I think one of the things when you're looking at, if you're thinking from a business standpoint, you still really do need to look at the player types, right? Like who's giving what to who, right? What's the exchange of value? Because like you said, what we've seen largely in GameFi and some of these things is that, the exchange of value is limited. So I think it's just worth noting that, if you're looking at from a business standpoint, you're still offering a product or a service. When you look at, how to leverage NFTs or metaverse, it's large in part still the same, right? Like you still have people that you want to buy your products and services, you want to engage them. And from my perspective, NFTs and metaverse gives you just this new, the metaverse, quote unquote, gives you the new front end where you can now engage them, like you said, in AR, VR, 3D. And NFTs give you this kind of vehicle that allows you to basically create a tradable market very quickly and easily that gives liquidity inside and outside. So you're able to attract people to your experience. And then all these other factors, like you mentioned, Yukai, that, oh, maybe I could buy this, get the utility, but I might even make money. And I think that's what's really, really interesting in the B2B space yet that's still just yet to be explored.
Yeah, I think the B2B space is really about offering value, services, infrastructure to other business in this space. So if you think about, again, before the internet exists and then it was created, suddenly you have B2B like Salesforce, right? Salesforce would not be interesting if there were no internet. You have Amazon Web Services, AWS, right? And we're seeing that, providing banking service. So what is that coin again? I forgot. A Tether, not Tether. By the way, don't put a lot of money in Tether. Tether, the founders of Tether are very, they have questionable backgrounds. I'll just end with that. what is that one? But and anyway, so there's one that's about
Luna.
that. No, not Luna. There's one about B2B banking. So their product is for banks to use and do things cheaper, more decentralized, right? That's a B2B product. It's and people use it. Arweave allows other projects to store files onto the blockchain. And so that's a B2B service, right? So I think the opportunity is about creating infrastructure, creating services around this economy. If we, like I said, if we believe this is going to be the future, then it's thinking, okay, what kind of if you want to go B2B, what is the service infrastructure, convenience, UX, UI that can be, that can facilitate the businesses that are operating this space. And, you know, it could make sense in the sense that, you know, the saying goes that if everyone's going digging for gold, then you sell shovels, right? So it's selling shovel, I guess, the B2B business in a sense. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities there too. I mean, we're as the Octalysis group, you know, we're B2B and we're seeing lots and lots of Web3 metaverse companies reaching out to us, and they read our book, they're big fans, and they want us to help design a balanced economy, tokenomics, white paper, all that stuff. And I'd say not only it's not just all the Web3 companies are interested in us. It's more like all the traditional companies want to become Web3, and so they're also coming to us. So yeah, that creates a lot of opportunity as long as you're positioned well.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so we're kind of ending towards the end of this fireside chat. I do want to answer one quick one here from Gene that just talks about security, not so much privacy, just security from scammers. What do you think that, you know, looks like? So I would say, Gene, from being in the space for quite a long time, there's scammers everywhere. I definitely that's something, but I kind of liken it that right now I probably get 1 or 2 phone calls a day from supposedly the Grand General of Canada telling me that, you know, something has been, you know, compromised. I need to call them right back, or Amazon has taken my credit card. So I think one of the things that we kind of turn an eye to is how accustomed we are to scams in our regular life, that I'm getting texts, I'm getting phone calls now. It started with your email scammers. So in the Web3 space, the biggest rule is never, ever give out anybody your passphrase to your wallet. If there's ever a service or something that says, sure, we can do this for you, all you have to do is enter this, you know, your 12 words or your 20 words, definitely a scam. Nobody should ever ask you for that. That gives them basically control over your bank account. And then I think a lot of the other rules apply, where if something smells a little fishy, I had actually an accountant friend call me and ask if I could help out with one of his clients, because, you know, even in the Web3 space, somebody offered him 1,000% return in 30 days. And I said, you know, even in the Web3 space, that's a pretty lucrative return. And so I'd always kind of use the smell test as well if something doesn't seem right. But always really read, you know, there's a saying that says DYOR, which is do your own research. And
I'll explain some of the fundamentals. So security wise, so the blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, at least theoretically as of this point, the technology is unhackable. People can't go into the tech and break your code. Now, what people can do is they can pretend to be you, or they can figure out how to be you. So they can trick you to give them their stuff. I've seen cases where, you know, someone logs into their wallet on their computer, but they use a, you know, Wi-Fi at a cafe, and then they suddenly see someone controlling their mouse, like clicking on their wallet, right? So the core technology is a hack, but the in and out can be hacked. And you see some hacks about exchanges. So exchanges are basically like they are holding your crypto, and they made a mistake, and someone used their login and took their money. So so again, the whole thing is you have to be more responsible, more careful to yourself, because this is not retrievable, and there's so many people attacking because it's lucrative and you can't be recovered, right? So that's the security side. The technology is secure, but as long as they can be you to access the money, then there's lots of scams. And then there's the anonymity. I think a lot of people are confused about that, because everything's like on the public on the blockchain, right? So why is there privacy? And the key is that your identity is just the wallet. So you can see this wallet did 1,000 things. You can trace to all of them, but that you don't know who the wallet belongs to. Some people, every transaction, they make a new wallet, and they send it to another wallet, send their stuff to the new wallet, and to new wallet. And you like people say, wow, there's this guy who owns like 7 billions worth of crypto in their wallet. That's crazy. And then no one besides themselves know this answer. Like if the government wants to find out, generally if they don't leave clues themselves that are stupid, like the government can't just call a bank and say, hey, who's this guy? The bank doesn't know, the government doesn't know. And so that's the anonymity. Like you get to do a lot of things on the internet without your personal identity connected. So of course, with compliance, governments are asking for this thing called know your customer. So people are attaching their identity to their wallet, but it's at this point, it's voluntary, or it's voluntary if you want to use certain services. So those are just some things to clarify that, people feel like is confusing.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. So somebody else asked, could you share the link if you have a special link to get to buy your book? That would be awesome. So if you want to share that in the chat. So again, somebody just said, gave some feedback in the future for our next one, maybe looking at what metaverse use cases do we think will get the most mass adoption and on what scale? So that we'll definitely take that back as some feedback. And then just real quick, Carrie asks, what would you recommend to high school or college students to start working on, especially if they excel in math, critical thinking, creativity, and they love games, NFTs, and have been really getting into the metaverse?
I think just, they're still early on in life, but just start learning how to build things, because that's whatever you describe sounds very well-rounded, but learning how to build 3D assets, through learning how to build animations, and then learning how to code. I think the safest bet is learning how to code, be a programmer, software, Silicon Valley, every big company is fighting for engineers. They're paying $200,000 to $500,000 a year because they just can't have enough good engineers. And those are even like the ones that everyone dream of. Like then you have like SAP, Oracle, that most people don't grow up like dreaming to work there, and they need engineers, so they're paying high dollars. And then you have like Subway needs an engineer, right? At least one, like engineering team. So software is eating the world, so that's the most stable place to be in. And then some people don't like to do engineering stuff because it requires a lot of mathematics, and I think being able to do creative assets, animation, 3D art, also writing, creative writing, persuasive, empathetic communication and writing is going to be huge. Like storytellers are also going to rule the world in the future. That's why Steve Jobs really looked up to Disney and created Pixar, looked up to Walt Disney and created Pixar, because he really believed that storytellers change the world.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I know we're a little bit over. Thanks for staying with us. If you haven't had a chance yet, please fill out the poll. So far, I think, we've had almost 16 people, almost 50% of participants do it. So we really thank you for joining us. We will continue to do these. Feel free to reach out to myself or you, Kai, or even through our emails, which is basically just our name, yukai@autolysisgroup.com or matt@autolysisgroup.com. If you want to look at anything, if you want to talk a little bit more about how we can actually help with your specific, project, or even if you just want to get some more resources, Yukai's blog, I always tell everybody, is a wealth of resources. Anybody who's reading his book knows that a lot of the information is in there as well. And of course, if you haven't yet, check out MetaBlocks, which is a really cool project that Yukai is obviously the co-founder of. I'm also part of that as well. And we just want to thank everybody again for joining. Please reach out for anything, even just to say hi. I know there's a lot of people in here that I recognize from the name, so thanks everybody for joining. And have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of the weekend, and we will all talk soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye.